Keeping your money safe is important. And there are people who like the idea of banking offshore, but they want to make sure that their money is going to stay safe. In this video, I'm going to talk about how you know that your offshore banking plan keeps your money secure and some specific ideas that you should keep in mind. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson, and I'll tell you what I told someone who I was helping recently. This is a gentleman who has about $2.5 million in cash, and he wanted to go and bank offshore. And when I asked him, I said, how much are you willing to move overseas now? I always like to talk about now, not what's going to happen a year from now, 5 years from now. What are you willing to do now? He said, okay, let's keep $1 million in the US and let's move $1.5 million overseas. And I probed him on that. I said, okay, that's great, but let's hold on a minute. Okay, you've told me you want to set up 2 or maybe maximum 3 banks. Are you comfortable taking 60% of your liquid cash and moving that into 2 or 3 new banks all in one fell swoop? Now, if the answer is yes, cool, let's find those banks. Let's go out and find some great $500,000 to $1 million banks and maybe some smaller banks to round out the list. But what I wanted to really get him to think about on a personal level was, is that really what he feels comfortable with? And the answer in his case was, well, maybe let's scale it back and let's give ourselves some room to grow. Let's give ourselves the pants that we can let out a little bit if we gain a little bit of weight. And I think that is an approach that works for a lot of people who aren't sure if the offshore bank is secure. And I don't care if you have $2.5 million or $2,500. If the goal is to set up, you've got to look at what percentage of your cash are you willing to, quote unquote, put at risk in your own mind. Because let's be honest, that's what this is. The fear of banking offshore is in your own mind. And while there's all kinds of statistics that I can point to say you're going to probably be fine, the odds are in your favor, everything's going to be all right, we have to deal with that mental part of the equation. Here are the numbers. During the global recession, someone did a study and they determined that of all the countries in the world, the United States had the 40th safest banks. And I believe the UK was 44th. Might have been switched. But bottom line is, I don't know many folks from the United States who could name 39 other countries, let alone 39 they would view as having stronger banks. But yet that was the objective research that this one survey did, where you had some countries in there that people would be shocked had stronger banks than the United States, stronger banks than the UK, and in Australia and Canada weren't that much higher up the list. Some of the strongest banks in the world are in countries like Singapore, they're in Hong Kong, they're in Germany, they're in Liechtenstein, and yes, Australia actually does have a few of them as well, although I don't entirely like the way that all the Australian banks operate. But here's my point. Right? If you're worried about keeping your money safe, and your money's sitting in the United States, and it's number 40 on the list, you could pick probably any other developed country you could think of and your money would be safer, yet you're concerned about doing it. And so the issue is a mindset issue. My response to that is, how do you know it's safe? Well, dip your toe in. In the case of this gentleman that I talked about, how do we do it to where it feels comfortable? So in his case, I said, okay, why don't we bring it down to $500,000 and let's build a basket of banks to where, okay, the one in the jurisdiction you're most comfortable with, like Singapore, okay, let's go and get that priority bank account that's $200,000. And then let's get a priority bank account in a country that you're a little bit less familiar with, and maybe that's $100,000. And then let's get 1 or 2 smaller banks where you'll just put the minimum in, and you'll just be able to kind of ease your way into it. I think that giving yourself room to breathe is important. And so if you're running a business or you just personally have cash flow coming in every month, that's a great way to dip into offshore banking. Set up an account and send your salary there to where if you lose $10,000 or whatever it is every month, you're not going to feel badly. Now here's the reality. 99.999% of the time, your bank's not going to fail. They're not even going to freeze your account or ask you any questions. You're going to follow the procedures and set up the bank account properly, do everything legally and properly. And you're not going to have any problems. But you will then train yourself to get over the fear that, hey, I sent my $10,000 salary there for the last 3 months, and so everything's working, got my money, used the ATM card, everything's working. Okay, hey, let me send 50 grand and let me park it there. And then, okay, let me go to the next bank. Let me go to the next bank. This is one of those situations where you really have to learn by doing. You know, remember the Big Bang Theory, Sheldon talked about how he learned how to swim on YouTube, but the skills were transferable. The skills aren't transferable, and they're not really transferable here. The answer to solving a mental mindset problem of how do I know this bank is secure is getting in and doing something that's a little uncomfortable, but which you know you could recover from. That could simply be, and this is why I like some of the banks we talk about, Georgia, Armenia, potentially Serbia, where you can go and put in $1 or €1, right, or $100, or whatever meaningless amount you have, and dip your toe in, build that tunnel, and see how it starts to work. You're not going to learn offshore banking and suddenly feel comfortable with it by reading. Now, what's the more analytical side to that? Obviously, you shouldn't be going and opening a bank account in the Congo or anywhere like that. What I think is a good thing to do is start off with, if you're building a portfolio of banks, those really small accounts in emerging countries where it's much more accessible. And if you have a larger amount of money to deposit, maybe you go to a Singapore, you go to a Hong Kong, you go to one of the larger, more reputable banking centers, and you put in the amount of money that they request. What's interesting about a lot of priority bank accounts is they'll generally give you 30 days or 60 days to move the money in. Sometimes they'll even give you 6 months before they start charging you fees, and so you have the opportunity to kind of slowly move money in. You send a test wire, send 5,000 of the 200,000, and you get that in there. And then you see that the money's there. You log in, you see it in your account, you go to the ATM, you take some money out, you pay a bill, you send a wire, you start to get comfortable with it, okay? What I want you to do in terms of knowing if an offshore bank is secure is look at the quality of the bank. Look at global bank ratings. Look at people who are analyzing the bank. What's the rating of the bank? Look at their financials, okay? Then look at the jurisdiction. How well does this jurisdiction regulate its banks? Is there deposit insurance? We have a video on that where we talk about how deposit insurance works and why it may or may not be important, okay? The answer to is an offshore bank secure? The answer is generally yes. I don't want to say absolutely yes, because if one bank fails, obviously, I want to exercise caution. What I can tell you is where you're banking right now is probably not nearly as good as you think it is, and there are better options. In the global recessions, the Singapores, the Qatars, the UAEs, they largely rode it out. And the Liechtensteins, all the big countries that you hear about, whereas the US, for example, had a lot of problems. And so that is the issue. Somehow people in Singapore are putting their money in the bank, they're depositing their salaries, they have their life savings, they live in Singapore, and they're perfectly fine. So I think exercising some general caution, using the resources on our website, here on our YouTube channel, finding places that are decent places to bank, assessing your own personal comfort level, figuring out what percentage of your money you want to move offshore, both now and where you want to be with it once you get comfortable, what you want to work up to. That's the best plan. Again, we're not going to some wild, far-flung country, at least not with a lot of money. But you have to assess your comfort, and only you can do that. But I really wanted to shift this to solving the human issue, because I think if you dip your toe in, you'll build that comfort over time in a way that no statistic can for you. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson from Nomad Capitalist. I wrote this book, which you can find on Amazon, to distill a lot of the stuff we talk about in these videos and a lot of the stuff I've learned over the last decade plus traveling all around the world, teaching you about how to legally reduce your taxes, build your personal freedom, and create wealth faster. Definitely get a copy of this book if you want to learn more. Now, if you want to watch more videos, make sure you subscribe to our channel and make sure you click the notifications bell so you never miss one of our new videos with more tips on how to go where you're treated best. And if you're already a 6- or 7-figure entrepreneur and you'd like to put these strategies in place for yourself, go to nomadcapitalist.com and learn about how I can help you.